to you, and thank you so much for finding time with us today. Today is on Monday the 14th, otherwise known as the Lovers' Day. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuned in today. My name is Miriam Gutu, and as usual, we are coming to you from Kenya's capital here in Nairobi. And being that it is on a Monday, we do have so much in store for you. As we know, Kenya is on its electioneering period. We are gearing up towards our general election, which is expected to take place on August. And so there has been lots of political activities, especially over the weekend. So we have so much to fill you up with in regards to that. And then at the tail end of the show, I shall bring you the latest news from across the continent. My name is Miriam Gutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. So we shall start with the Star newspaper. And the main headline on the Star newspaper: cracks emerge in Azimio campaign. The void left by Raila Odinga's absence from the rallies has worsened the situation. The story is on page 6 on the Star newspaper. 7 injured, 7 cars burned in Taka explosion. That is the main pictorial on the Star. Raila in India to benchmark for 6,000 Kenya shillings welfare plan. Right, that is on page 7. And Ruto's Mount Kenya bleeds ahead of Kenyatta's tour. That is on page 4 and 5 on the Star newspaper. Why drowning victims are buried in the beach in Lamu. That is on page 14 and 15 of the Star newspaper there. And then we turn our attention to the Daily Nation. And on the Daily Nation, polls, the main headline: polls, IEBC rejects Huduma number. Can't work, won't work. In a letter to members of parliament, the electoral agency chairperson Mafula Chebukati says the suggestion to incorporate controversial registration number into polls management comes too late, as it will require lengthy revision of processes and registers. The story is on page 4 on the Daily Nation, and the main pictorial: a fiery disaster at escarpment. A truck explosion leaves trail of damage and causes road closure. A truck ferrying liquefied petroleum gas burst into flames near Maimahiu yesterday, burning several other cars and causing a traffic mayhem that lasted the whole day. That is on page 8 of the Daily Nation. And CBK public debt grew by 1 trillion Kenya shillings last year. Nairobi owed 8.2 trillion Kenya shillings by last December, and the National Treasury is seeking parliamentary approval to increase spending by 126.3 billion Kenya shillings over the next 6 months as the government's appetite for loans grows. That is on the back page on the Daily Nation. Judiciary seeks 1 billion Kenya shillings more to pay new judges. The judiciary needs at least 1 billion Kenya shillings to cater for the 34 judges who were appointed last June. Other than catering for the new judges, the judiciary requires 106.5 million Kenya shillings in election-related expenses. That is on page 10, and we shall look a bit on that. And then just up there, on the 2022 campaign trail, Kenya Kwanza leaders led by Ruto, Moise Baringo backyard as Azimio pitches camp in Homa Bay. The story is on page 5 and 6 on the Daily Nation. And then we turn swiftly to the Standard newspaper. The main headline: 6 issues voters want leaders to fix. Too many Kenyans have been denied quality education, locking them out of jobs and confining them to poverty. Voters want economy fixed, agriculture revamped, and steps taken to reduce inequality. That is on page 4 and 5 on the Standard newspaper. And auditor queries varsity funding as CS defends CBC. That is, our Education Minister accused of frustrating public universities, as report raises questions about how the institutions are funded, and Magoha says new curriculum is here to stay. The story is on the learning pages. It's a special pull-out on the Standard newspaper on page 13 and 14. And the numbers that matter ahead of August elections. Kenyan politics is more like an ethnic consensus. Given this scenario, some regions are poised to play a major role in influencing who becomes the 5th president. We crunch the numbers. The story is on page 6 and 7 on the Standard newspaper. And then maybe we'll just turn our attention to some of the regional papers we do have from across the continent. And we see what do we have from We start with the citizen from Tanzania, our Democratic Republic of Congo, on the threshold of entry as 7th EAC member. The resource-rich country in the heart of Africa is expected to be officially admitted to the East African community later this month, earlier than previously thought, becoming the newest member of the regional bloc. And I think also Somalia wanted to join the East Africa community. I don't know if it has continued to pursue that, but Somalia and the DRC had, I think, made a request to be members of the East African community. But I see DRC and how DRC has been, operating and has been having diplomatic ties and others. It's been warming so much towards the East African community. And of course, during President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure as the chairperson of the EAC, we saw a lot of that. And so DRC is set to be another member of the East African community, as according to the Citizen newspaper from Tanzania. That is likely to happen by, said what, earlier, like towards next month, I believe. Okay, all right, let's just move on now to Zimbabwe and the daily news from no, not Zimbabwe, but the daily news. There's a daily news from Zimbabwe, then there's a daily news from Tanzania. So let's first look at the one from Tanzania. And Samia pushes investment agenda, and I think President Samia is really set to change the political and the development topography there. In Tanzania, and union government throws weight behind our blue economy. Okay, very well. And then we go to the Punch from Nigeria. Fuel sells for 400 naira per litre in Abuja. Others, scarcity persists in Lagos, and marketers still struggling to return unadulterated petrol to NNPC, and corporation pleads for patience. Fuel queues will end soon. Another problem there from Africa's most populous nation. There's always something going on in Nigeria. And then still staying with Nigeria, and we look at the Guardian newspaper. The main headline: strike. Not again anxious Nigerians warn federal government. ASUU union extends meeting to announce decision today. Most lecturers support industrial action, as says source. And then parent stakeholders appeal for restraint. I think like the higher learning institution in Nigeria, I think as said from this story, are said to go on a strike. The teachers there, the lecturers, probably overpay, according to that story. All right, and NNPC yet to withdraw dirty fuel as petrol queues linger. That also, you'll find it there. And then the Daily Monitor from Uganda. Police bust a plot to kill 3 clerics, and the suspects are ex-members of Universal Apostle Fellowship Church of Righteousness, who are accused of plotting. How can you be a Universal Church of Righteousness and then you're plotting to kill your church leader there? I mean, okay, all right. And I think righteousness has different meanings here. The story is on page 6 of the Daily Monitor from Uganda. The Congo cast and return to the jungles. And you'll find that on page 4 and 5. And the main pictorial, I see President Museveni and counterparts discuss regional peace. I think he went to, because I see here he's seated with Felix Tshisekedi, the president of the DRC. We know that the International Court of Justice made a ruling the other day that requires Uganda to pay DRC $325 million US, because this case had been in the courts since 2005. And so finally the ruling was made, and we know right now Uganda is playing a very active role in terms of trying to just calm the restive areas there in DRC. So perhaps the timing was just off, looking at everything else that is in place. I think President Museveni going and meeting with President Felix Tshisekedi and maybe discussing and coming to an amicable situation as solution. I think that is the best way. Diplomacy always, done when done well, always, is good, because we don't want another escalation in this region. We have enough to deal with already. Okay, so the main headline on the New Vision, still from Uganda. inside Bamugemerera Land Probe Report and Regional Peace and Security Summit, that is there. And we go to Newsday, that is from Zimbabwe. ZEC illegally moves 170,000 voters. That is the main headline. And the Daily News, yes, this is the one I keep confusing. The Daily News now from Zimbabwe. The first one was the Daily News from Tanzania. US dollar will ruin Zimbabwe economy. That is according to President Emerson Mnangagwa. So I don't know how that will work out, because we know the US, Zimbabwe has been using, the US dollar as their main currency. Of course, they do have theirs that, lost value because of the high, inflation. But now it is saying, it's not good for the economy. And so I don't know, they tried to bring in a new currency maybe 2 years ago. That hasn't worked well for them. So as I wait for my panelists this morning, perhaps I'll just take us through some of this story and get us the details over what is really happening. And there is this story on 6 issues voters want leaders, to fix. The story is on page 4 and 5 on the Standard newspaper. And politics is a game of numbers, and with about 6 months to the August 9th general election, the magic number for those gunning for the presidency is 50% plus 1 vote. That means the winning candidate will need the support of slightly over half of the 22 million registered voters. The 2 leading presidential hopefuls, Raila Odinga of Azimio la Umoja and Deputy President William Ruto of UDA, have unveiled well-oiled campaign machineries, complete with catchy phrases and slogans aimed at the convincing voters that they are best suited to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta, whose tenure ends this year. However, the 22 million voters are not just statistics or voting machines. They're human beings with hopes, fears, and aspirations. They are parents struggling to feed, house, educate their children, and they would be mothers worried about whether them and their babies would emerge from hospital delivery rooms alive. The job seekers or workers struggling to strike a delicate balance between what they earn and the high cost of living. So I think the Standard newspaper really clearly putting a face to what these numbers and these statistics, means in terms of, the people and the voters that we have. And of course, some of these problems were there, but with the pandemic, I think a lot of this has been made worse. So many people lost their jobs, and things like that. So according to this story, poverty and lack of jobs, that is one of the key things that the Kenyan voters would want the next coming government to address. As I've said there, the pandemic really messed things over. The economy was catching up. It has started doing pretty well, and then the pandemic happened, and now a lot of things got messed up. A lot of companies did shut down, and these companies employ a certain number of Kenyans and things like that. And so as we gear towards the next election, some of these problems President Uhuru Kenyatta's leadership might not be able to address right now, but for the incoming government, I think these are very critical issues that Kenyan voter and the Kenyans at large would want the next government to really address. The issue of poverty, the issue of lack of jobs. How can we address it? Devolution, the founders and the crafters of our constitution, devolution from the context and how I understand it was supposed to solve some of these problems. The issue of partly poverty and the lack of jobs, because we see a lot of young people coming into the cities to look for jobs. So devolution was meant for us to build other 47 economic hubs across the country, the counties, so that we don't have to have a lot of young people migrating from the rural areas coming to Nairobi or Mombasa or Nakuru or Kisumu, these major towns and cities, to look for work. And then you find that there's no work. So that leads to the emergence and the growing of the slum and these informal settlements across these major towns. That is the main problem. So with the devolution, it was expected opportunities will be, created in these, counties, so that young people don't have to migrate here if they really don't have to, that they can still access the services, they can still access, there will be some economic hubs being created, in these areas that will support the small businesses, that will support the farmers, that will support the growth and, production in whatever form from our counties. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked yet, but of course, devolution is still the best idea that could have ever happened in this country. It's very important, and we know that it is through President Uhuru Kenyatta's, when they came to power for the first time, that is when we were implementing the 2010 Constitution, and for the first time, that is when even the issue of, devolution and these other governments came into play. So the first term was setting up structures, because they're not devolution structures at all, in the counties. So fine, things were slow, devolution was not being felt yet. But now, over 10 years later, Kenyans are asking, come on now, you've had enough time to put up structures. You've had enough time to create these avenues and structures that are required to drive, the economies in the counties, but not much is coming out of these counties, especially when you look at the reports through the Auditor General time and time again on the counties, and you see even the amount of money that is being set aside for developmental agendas in the rural, in the counties. I think it's very sad, and perhaps the leaders that we need in place in these counties, I don't know if politicians are the right people to be the county bosses. I'm not sure, because we've seen it's just too much politicking. Yeah, so maybe in that aspect, we didn't, I don't know, maybe we could change it later on and see that maybe the head of counties, like a governor, does not have to be a politician, but somebody who can be I don't know. But as it is right now, it's not working. These people don't really care about the developmental agendas in these counties, all right? Because when you look at right now, poverty and lack of jobs, as much as it is a national problem, for us as a country, but also these counties have roles to play in terms of addressing some of these issues, okay? If you know your county is known for good, agriculture that feeds the rest of us, empower the farmers there. Be the person that gets them the fertilizers at a good price. Be the person that champions for the welfare of these farmers, to encourage them, to do more in terms of production. But in these cases, you find that the same leaders who are supposed to be looking after the interests of, of their people, they're the same people who are the middlemen, who are the cartels, who do things that end up affecting these farmers who work so hard to produce. And if your county is known for something else, capitalize on that. And at the end of the day, if everybody did their job and all was brought to the national table, perhaps we would have something to be proud of as a country. But as it is right now, a lot of governors sometimes still behave as though they're still looking at the national government. They don't really understand their role as the county heads and county bosses to ensure that some of these agendas are driven, some of these things are implemented, some of these issues, responsibility of the counties. So I think it's still sad, and devolution is something that I think it is something that has to be. We have to keep looking at it and seeing how better can we strengthen devolution. As I said, I think that's the best thing that has ever happened in this country. When you go to a lot of, especially those far end counties, in the arid and semi-arid areas. I think it's through devolution that a lot of them now get to celebrate good roads, get to celebrate, a few things. A few of them who have been able to get level-headed leaders to actually implement some of this decision and work with the national government to implement some of these things. So it is good, but we still need to strengthen it. We still need to find ways and ideas to make sure that devolution works for all Kenyans, and that it's not only corruption that we devolved very well, but also we devolved matters that are important to Kenyans. And so I think this is a conversation that we must continue having and find ways to reinvent, to relook, to enrich, and to implement devolution as it should, so that Kenyans can truly understand and can truly appreciate why it's even important to have had the country devolved. And according to this story, 22 million voters are not statistics or voting machines, which is very clear. And they are human beings with hopes, fears, and aspirations. Their parents struggling to feed households. I think I read that earlier. Now that on August 9th, many of them will walk to their polling stations, endure long queues under the scorching sun or the rain, and to cast their ballots is a testament to Kenya's optimism that their votes will count and they have a reason to vote. And so the story continues. I can't read the whole of it, but you get it. Like at the end of the day, as much as we want to politic, and I know a lot of our airtime in the country just tune in for the last couple of years, forget now that we are in the electioneering year. Kenyans have been, it's like our default mode is politics. It's just politics, 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 politics. All right. And that's why President Uhuru Kenyatta a couple of years ago, I think over 2 years ago, he was pleading with the political class. He said, can we just stop with the politics for a moment and let's just work, deliver on the promises that we promised Kenyans? Because we have work to do. We campaigned, we won the re-election. So now we have work to do, and President Uhuru Kenyatta has been, focused on his legacy. Will he be able to achieve everything that, he had purpose to do? Maybe not, but from what I see, he's really trying so hard to at least do as much as he can with the time that is remaining. And so politics has become, I think, our greatest enemy when it comes to development in this country. And I don't think a lot of Kenyans understand. All right, because we spend so much time that we could use in other productive ways, just politicking, insulting each other, and pledging allegiance to leaders who don't even mean well, to us. So at the end of the day, a lot of issues that are supposed to be addressed are not addressed. A lot of developments that are supposed to be taking place do not take place because we are caught up in this. In the politics. So we don't even have time to sit down and reflect and see what these people are doing, and so that we can hold them accountable properly. We don't have time to do that because we are caught up in that political default setting, if I may put it like that. Kenyans, I think that is our default setting. We're just too political, and we politicize everything. War on terror, you'll find that people want to politicize that. Health, you'll still find a lot of politics in that. Corruption, it has become politicized until now. You wonder what's really happening. So it's quite sad. So with that, you find that a lot of things are not being able to be done in the manner in which it should. So perhaps that is something that maybe will change among Kenyans. Maybe the political tones will go down after the elections. I'm not sure, but hopefully there'll come a time where Kenyans will just look at an election process as just a process, not for us it's a whole event. It starts so many years back. It consumes so much of our time, and we waste so much time doing that. So it will just be something that we have to do. You go vote and you go your way. I want to see a day where Kenyans, elections will not be a matter of do or die. It's just your civic, duty. You go vote and then you just go home, and the votes will be, counted well and tallied well. And so there will be no, reason to kill each other and to waste another time trying to recover from an economy that has been battered after a violent election. That is something that perhaps should be of the past, or hopefully in the near future that would not be the case. Maybe starting from August election that is upcoming. At this time, I'm joined by Daniel Wesonga, our correspondent from Nairobi. Wesonga, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu. Good morning to our viewers who are here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, the rest of Africa, and the rest of the world who are joining us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So I was just looking at the main headline on the Standard newspaper this morning, and 6 issues voters would want the leaders to fix. Of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta does not have much time right now, perhaps, to respond effectively to some of these issues. But let me just give you the figures as it is. 17.2 million, that is the number of poor people in Kenya. The rural poor spend less than 3,250 per month, Kenya shillings per month. Urban poor spends less than 6,000 Kenya shillings per month. 3.4 million, that is the people who have no academic certificates, meaning they're locked out of modern jobs that require skills and innovation. So that is 3.4 million. And 2 in every 5 people in West Pokot and Turkana and Garissa with access to informal financial services. The remaining can neither have nor get bank loans. And then 42% of households in Nairobi have access to piped water, but the water in slums is contaminated, exposing families to health risks. And then 16.5 million Kenyans hold the same amount of wealth as the 2 richest people in the country, exposing the high levels of economic inequality. That is the 1%. So 2 people, when you put their wealth together, you compare it to 16.5 million Kenyans, that is staggering. What do you make of that and some of these issues that Kenyans would want the next government to fix? Daniel? Okay, so I think we're having a bit of a technical hitch there. Yeah, that's why I think you joined late. We've been having a bit of a technical hitch. So let's just go to page 7 on the Daily Nation and look at the story and see. Before we look at the let's just look at the main story. The main story on the Daily Nation. The main story: IEBC rejects Huduma number. The story is on page 4 on the Daily Nation. And the Electoral Commission has faulted the Huduma number Bill 2021, saying there is insufficient time for the agency to implement the law before the August 9th general election. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission says the enactment of the law would compel it to change its standard operating procedures in voter registration and verification. It will also have to update its register and its technology platforms such as the Kenya Integrated Election Management System, KEMS, and Candidates Registration Management System. Now, it will then have to update the register of voters by inserting a field for the Huduma number to replace the document used in registration. Alternatively, it will have to devise a way of incorporating the Huduma number in the electronic register in a memorandum detailing its views on the controversial bill. The agency says Kenyans must be given adequate time to acquire the Huduma number so as not to be disenfranchised for the August polls and safeguard the right to vote and stand for elections. And when the use of national identity cards or valid passport will be replaced with Huduma card as the only means of official identification, IEBC says that the bill is creating confusion as it is right now. The bill, which was introduced in the House last December 6 to consolidate the law on civil registration and legal identity management, establish a digital national platform, a database to be the primary source of foundational data for a resident and provide mechanism for registration of births, deaths, and other vital events. Daniel, I don't know if you can hear me. Good morning.
It's a very, very good morning, Miriam. Sorry, my connectivity was a bit down for a moment.
Okay, very well. It's okay. I understand sometimes with technology it can be a bit tricky, but I'm glad you're back again. So Chebukati is not agreeing. He's poking holes on the Huduma number because apparently, according to a bill that was presented in the Huduma number bill, it was suggested that people with Huduma numbers could use that to vote or to register as voters. But Chebukati is saying due to the amount of time and the amount of work that will have to go through, having to redo this whole system and how it was initially meant to work, we don't have that time right now. So should we use, I don't even know if that is even a question, but is he right in this regard? Because I don't know if Huduma numbers, we are even ready for that yet. Wesonga?
Thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, we understand. Yes, are you able to get me?
Yes.
Yes, we understand where the likes of Wafula Chebukati come from in terms of trying to make sure that our elections are actually seamless and everyone gets an opportunity to vote. You know, when you go world over, the likes of Huduma number, such cards are whatever majority of the citizens in the first world are using. You know, why would someone be forced to register as a voter using an ID card and then go ahead again to actually get a voter's card? You know, we would have maybe looked at other measures to ensure that majority of our people are registered to become voters towards the general election. And the Huduma number actually offers you that opportunity, because with the Huduma number, you are able to capture all the biometrics, all the data that actually are related to a certain individuals and harness them into one thing. Other than maybe having to work with an NTSA, maybe driving license, having to work with an HIF card, having to work with NSSF and a voter's card, all of that could actually be harnessed into Huduma number. And to me, Huduma number is more superior than even an identity card. And therefore, the likes of Wafula Chebukati should not be maybe stuck in the past, where maybe you are required to have an ID, then register for a voter's card and all that, carrying so many cards. So to me, I believe there's no way Wafula Chebukati can claim that a Huduma number could be sufficient. And yet in the developed world, in countries like Sweden, Netherlands, and even in the US, they have to, they actually harness all these information into a single card, the kind of Huduma number, or Huduma card. And therefore, with that number, you can be able to be identified, and all your data or information in government systems is harnessed together. So to me, Miriam, I don't think Huduma number is insufficient as Wafula Chebukati would want us to believe. But this is a card that actually makes sure that we harness the information per individual, and therefore, even it will be so easy to stop individuals who might want to vote twice, because with the Huduma number, everything is actually captured. With IDs, we've seen scenarios where people forge IDs and they have two IDs, and with two IDs, they can actually be able to vote twice or thrice, depending on how many copies they have under different names. But with the Huduma number, all that kind of cheekness is actually done away with. So to me, I believe it's just a matter of perhaps being able to look at it in that particular manner, and knowing that we cannot be stuck in the past as a people. We need to appreciate new ideas that will be able to easen up the services that are offered by government, and not and elections are not limited to that, because at the end of the day, with the Huduma card, if you have the Huduma card, ultimately you have your ID, and therefore if you can present that at a voting station, then perhaps you might, I believe IEBC must have structures to ensure that people are allowed to vote with the Huduma number. So to me, I think it's a lame excuse from Wafula Chebukati, and he's trying to maybe align with the narrative of William Ruto and Musalia Mudavadi, who had claimed earlier on that Huduma number, the Huduma card could be used as a scheme to rig the August polls. But these are the same people who are on the front line taking the Huduma number. Musalia Mudavadi was a chief guest in Kajiado while issuing out the Huduma number, but simply because Wafula Chebukati is their puppet, and these individuals feel that Huduma number could be used to interfere with the election, which is a very, very far-fetched imagination, by the way. So he believes that maybe giving the card a negative publicity and poking holes into it might maybe compel Kenyans to lose confidence in it. But as it may be, Miriam, This is a noble initiative, and just like even the CBC, this is a noble initiative which is being fought by the forces of retrogressive backward society that have been stuck into the olden ways of doing things and are not ready to actually acclimatize to the change that is happening in the government currently. But otherwise, Miriam, I see no bad thing about Huduma number. If for any case, I believe it will have eased up the burden of Kenyans carrying various cards in their pockets and in their wallets, and therefore Huduma number brings a seamless way even for us to conduct our elections, Miriam. I submit.
And I agree with you, but we have to look at the reality as it is right now and the way this Huduma number has been rolling out. First of all, I registered mine just here in Nairobi. Do you know I was being called by the chief in my village that my Huduma number was taken to my village? So the manner in which the rollout has been taking place, perhaps it has not been, I don't know, effective. So many people have not received their Huduma numbers. So Chebukati is not entirely against the use of Huduma number, maybe in the future, but he's saying for this election, for right now, perhaps the country is not prepared to use it because voters continue to register using their voters card and other documents that they used to use, like their passport and maybe the driver's license, passport. So for right now, do you think actually when you look at, the situation in the ground, are we really prepared to use Huduma number, or will we be adding more confusion, to a process that is already very sensitive at this stage?
Miriam, I believe the Huduma number rollout was quite okay, but we must agree that sometimes we do have maybe an error here and here. Of course, to human is to error, and perhaps the reason why the cards were being sent to people's maybe rural homes is because the address that you provide on your ID, behind your on the backside of your ID, is actually your permanent residential address, by which if they were to trace you and to be able to reach you easily, then that is the address that they will post out. Because you realize that today you might be living in a place like Karen or Runda, but come next month maybe you are moving maybe to another place, maybe in Kitusuru or somewhere else around town. So that could not be your permanent address if they have to look for you. But that particular address that is on your ID, at the backside of your ID, is the surest bet of actually being able to access you. And for majority of Kenyans,
sorry, but if I was to go with the idea that means even the IDs I would be going to pick from my village. But if I apply my ID now, mine got lost, so I went and reapplied for a new one at one of the Huduma centers. That is where I went to pick my ID. It came right there.
Actually, that is how it's supposed to be. And
yes.
I'm just saying it was an error, yes. But nonetheless, not really a bad error, because all the same, if it would have been maybe a scenario where you applied in Nairobi, your home is in Siaya, and it's being sent to Garissa, then you will have said, perhaps this rollout is not quite okay. But I believe those ones whose Huduma numbers were being sent to their villages were able to actually reach out, and the Huduma centers were able to actually send them to the right locations. But nonetheless, it was an error which the people who are rolling out the cards should take responsibility for. And I believe, Miriam, this is a process which, if we would have supported it fully and the people behind it maybe lobbied Kenyans to go in mass and be able to apply for it, perhaps today we will be talking about maybe a majority of Kenyans, maybe 20 million Kenyans who are above 18 years and above could be having Huduma numbers. And that would have been an easy way of doing things, Miriam. Even fighting crimes, you realize that maybe if you have Huduma number and you have a criminal record, that could be easily be incorporated into the system so that we are able to know everything about everyone. And in case anything happens in the society, you really have traces to be able to put your tracks on. So to me, I believe this was a noble idea, but nonetheless, the enemies of progress and people who were very, very hell-bound to fight the legacy of the president, unfortunately shut it down. But nonetheless, it does not diminish the essence and the effectiveness of the Huduma number, Miriam. So to me, I don't believe that it is not maybe the rightful card to use during the August polls, because those who have it already, there is no any evidence that shows that it is in an insufficient card, because they could opt to use it because it captures all their details, everything that the IEBC ought to know about these particular voters. And if it were maybe another person who is at the helm of IEBC, apart from Chebukati, because we know Chebukati is very, very inept and is conniving when it comes to how he rolls out some of the projects in IEBC. I believe that person would have actually worked hand in hand with the Ministry of Interior, so that by the time Huduma number had started being rolled out towards 2019, 2018, by now we will be having every Kenyan voter on Huduma number, so that it becomes even easier to relay results and everything. You know, everything now becomes electronic. People can vote even, electronically on maybe just by logging into your phone and being able to cast your vote via your Huduma number and all that. But because Chebukati is stuck in the past, he cannot maybe fathom the change that Huduma number might bring. A good change, by the way, in terms of the speed and the effectiveness and the reliability, because that is what internet does. That is what digitization does. So I believe he cannot fathom that, and that is why he thinks that bringing Huduma number is equal to actually rigging and interfering with the system. It is not, Miriam. The internet actually provides a very, very tamper-proof system where even today the banks are able to transact, and people are able to actually send money from all the way as far as the US, Canada, and all the way across the globe. So to me, I believe change is inevitable, and when the bells of change ring, then we must adhere to it and be able to align with the world. The world is changing, Miriam, and if we do not change with the world, then we shall be left in a world actually surpassed by events. So to me, I believe even after President Uhuru Kenyatta's term ends, I believe those who come into office, they should give priority to Huduma number, so that we are able to revolutionize our database, our government database, and ease up services, make work easier in terms of even people voting and being able to pay their bills, tracking their maybe subscriptions to various government programs and all that. It will become much easier. You can imagine the amount of time, Miriam, even that you spend maybe going to a certain government department, even going maybe to check your NHIF status and all that. It's really, really hectic for a Kenyan when everything is a bit manual and not harnessed in a single card. You have to move. You realize if you're applying, let's say for a passport, you move from this government department to the next, to the other, and all that, all time wasting, Miriam. So if we can have a card like Huduma number, I believe it is a stroke of the magic one, because it will ease up things. It will harness everything together and make work easier. And it would have made work easier even for Afula Chebukati. And I don't believe maybe it might maybe affect the election in a negative way. Why not in other advanced democracies where they use such cards? So to me, I believe it's just a convenient excuse. Okay, we must say that maybe perhaps in the rollout, those ones who were in charge fail a bit, but nonetheless, Miriam, this is was a very noble idea, and it will have even helped in reducing the budget, the budgetary allocation that we have on IEBC that actually goes into billions of shillings in the future. I submit.
Very well, I agree. Yeah, Huduma number is a noble idea. So perhaps it may not work in this year's election, but perhaps in the upcoming election, structures will have been put in place that will support the use of that. So that is that. Let's get into some politics now. And a political showdown is looming in the Azimio La Umoja movement as affiliate parties lag it out in regions perceived as friendly to the formation, rooting for former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. The fast growing Democratic Action Party Kenya, DAP Kenya, is punching well above its weight, raiding Orange Democratic Movement strongholds in Western at will. Although DAP Kenya supports Mr. Odinga, the latest move by its leaders to open offices in ODM bases has sparked tension in the coalition. The region voted overwhelmingly for Mr. Odinga in the 2007, 2013, and 2017 polls. And last Friday, DAP Kenya took the battle to ODM's doorstep in Butere, opening an office in the backyard of Deputy Party Leader Wycliffe Oparanya. DAP Kenya has branded itself as the alternative party to ODM, Amani National Congress, and Ford Kenya, the leading outfits in the region. So this might upset, ODM's popularity in ODM, I think, votes in Western Kenya, because we know ODM has enjoyed good support in Western Kenya, but this DAP Kenya party, is it likely to change the matrix as far as the Western voting is concerned?
Miriam, that is a misconception, which is not actually factual. Raila Odinga, in contrary, has enjoyed a massive support in Western Kenya, but not ODM party. When you go to Busia in 2013, we had 2 Jubilee parliamentary seats. Jubilee, those going to Jubilee, that is Teso South and Teso North. When you go to Trans Nzoia, we had over 40% of the seats going to Jubilee Party, and the rest going to Ford Kenya and 1 to ODM. When you go to Bungoma County, we have the likes of Didmas Waluke and in Bumula also going to Jubilee Party. Those are 3 out of out of 7. So, and if you go to a county like Kakamega, actually Jubilee had 4 seats out of the 7 seats. So, and the rest went to ANC, and one or 2 went to ODM. And that is the same thing that happened even in Vihiga. Others went to ANC. We had a Jubilee member of parliament, and maybe 2 to ODM. So it is really a misconception that ODM has a majority seats in Western Kenya. It is not. These seats are actually shared among the various parties. But one undeniable thing is that Raila Odinga actually is the most popular in Western Kenya. He had over 87% popularity, and I believe this time round he can do even 90%. And of course, that is not something to maybe contest. But in ODM, in regards to ODM party, ODM has been holding very shambolic nominations in Western Kenya, and I believe also other parts of Nyanza region. And therefore, we've had people actually going to other parties, maybe Raila-friendly parties. And in the worst case scenario, these seats have actually been going to Jubilee Party. So I don't think ODM should lay claim on Western Kenya, and they should not feel disgruntled whenever the DAP Kenya looks to be seems to be as if maybe making inroads into that particular region. We know this is a region which is very open to very other parties, and you might not know it, but in Western Kenya, we even have people who won on an independent party ticket, and other small parties like Maendeleo Chap Chap. So to me, I believe, Miriam, it should be an open space. There is no way maybe a particular party will demarcate a certain region and maybe lay claim on it. After all, we are all in Azimio la Umoja, and DAP Kenya is supporting Raila Odinga as much as ODM, and it could be even doing more than ODM is doing in terms of supporting Raila Odinga. Jubilee Party is supporting Raila Odinga like the ODM party is doing, and so is many other particular many other parties like the Upia movement, the Power Party of Amason Jaffa Kingi, and all those, even including the one for the Ugenya MP, that is David Ochieng. And that is how politics is, Miriam. So these are same team players, and I believe ODM should go slow on maybe feeling disgruntled and feeling like as if DAP is going to take whatever birthright that they had in Western Kenya. That was not their ground. And more specifically, I believe ODM had actually derailed Raila's grip on Western Kenya by offering shambolic nominations in Western Kenya. And therefore, they should be thankful that DAP is coming to cement the support for Raila Odinga through offering fairness and proper nominations in the region. And if ODM is serious about reclaiming Western Kenya, then there's only a simple thing that they need to do, that is offering free and fair nominations. But nonetheless, Miriam, this sibling rivalry is bound to happen, but in whichever way, let it happen in a very, very friendly manner, and a manner that accommodates everyone on board, and let there be fair competition. But I believe in the long run, together with Uhuru Kenyatta, the leader, will be able to strike maybe a way of working together, especially in areas where a certain party is stronger than the other. Then they can have a joint ticket on Azimio party. I believe that is in the pipeline. So that kind of maybe sibling rivalry will actually be healed by having a coalition party where the strongest candidate under the member parties can be given the main party's ticket to be able to fly the coalition's flag in a certain area of jurisdiction. So I believe that's something that is happening now, but in the coming days, we might not have the same. But nonetheless, competition is healthy, and let ODM accept that and allow DAP also to carve its niche in Western Kenya. I submit.
Very well, thank you so much. And because of the interest of time, because we have to give way for another show, I'll just read through quickly the other news from a few news items from across the continent. And I'll start with Burundi, where thousands took to the streets of Burundi Saturday in a show of support for the government after the EU and US resumed aid to the impoverished Central African nation, organizers said. Brussels and Washington both cited political progress under President Evariste Ndayishimiye, who for their decisions to lift sanctions on Burundi, even though campaign groups insist human rights are still being widely abused. Hamza Benet Burukukie, a civil society figure close to the government, speaking on behalf of the rally organizers, said marchers wanted to thank the EU and US for the removal of the unjust sanctions. They said in Kirundi, the official language of Burundi, that a lie can last a day, but it can't last a whole year. That's why the international community finally realized that Burundians were unjustly sanctioned. Okay. And then we go to Tunisia. And Tunisian President Kais Saied has replaced a key judicial watchdog and gave himself powers to sack judges, as well as banning them from going on strike. Hours after the decree was published on Sunday, hundreds of protesters demonstrated in Tunis to voice their fears for an independent judiciary. Said's decree came a week after he said he would dissolve the High Judicial Council, prompting a national shutdown of courts by judges, saying that would infringe on judicial independence. Said is really playing with fire here. I don't know if he learned anything, from what happened. The Arab Spring started in Tunisia. He seems to have forgotten, something that sent his predecessor to seek for asylum. So I think soon Tunisians will just have it, and this president, he's just playing with fire. That's all I would say for right now. And then we move on to Libya, where Libyan Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deiba on Saturday stressed the importance of holding elections soon to end the country's current crisis. The solution to the current crisis, as well as peace and reconciliation in the country, can be achieved by holding elections soon. That is what Deiba said during the National Reconciliation Forum in Digdalin, some 120 kilometers west of Tripoli. And he added that there is a political class that took over Libya in the past years and seeks to extend the mandate and bring back war and conflict. And you know what? I probably agree with him, but maybe because also there are other external forces that continue to fuel this conflict in Libya, because they're benefiting in this crisis and this amount of chaos that has been seen since the ousting of the strongman Gaddafi. And then we end in Sudan, where Sudan's Transitional Sovereign Council chairperson Abdel Fattah al-Burhan on Saturday said the military is open to dialogue aimed at achieving democratic transition. The army is ready to conduct a dialogue regarding a transitional period if a consensus is reached. And that is according to al-Burhan in an interview aired by Sudan TV. The army will leave the political arena in the event that elections are conducted or a national consensus is reached in the country, he said. So that is the latest. And because we really don't have time, okay. I live around a flight path, I suppose. I don't know. For the interest of time, we shall come back, shall give way to the next show. So I will see you in a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Daniel Vasonga. This has been Kenya and Africa at a glance. It has been a pleasure. Good morning, and I will see you soon. Don't go too far.